one thing I learned today from you is a breach response plan. It was just like anything else. If there's an injury incident on the factory floor, or there's a fire in a building, or there's a snow day, how do you notify employees not to come to work, right? Everybody has action plans, but how many business owners out there, smaller companies, have a breach response plan that when something happens, they can open up this document, probably a piece of paper, because they can't get into a computer, and say, okay, call X, Y, and Z, let's get this going. And the quicker we're back online, the more we can mitigate the damage and get back to business as normal. Hi, everybody. Welcome back to our podcast, The Ins and Outs of Selling a Business. Today, we're going to continue our conversation on cybersecurity. For those of you who were not able to attend our last podcast or listen or view it, I encourage you to do so. And we're very fortunate to bring back Darragh Fitzpatrick. Darragh is a partner with Tabush Group. They are an IT consulting managed service firm out of New York, currently serving clients in 27 states. So Darragh, we talked a lot on last episode about the broader picture on cybersecurity, ways to protect yourself, ways to implement plans, concerns about cybersecurity. Today, you and I both work with family close-sale companies. That's the bulk of our business, right? The big, large corporations, they have a multiple-person internal team. They're consulting with the large multinational consulting firms to provide a huge protection to protect the biggest asset, their business, intellectual property, and their people. So I'm looking at this, and I'm saying to myself, when an employee walks into a company or walks on a manufacturing floor or office, there's signs everywhere, right? Stop, do not enter without safety glasses, beware of this, caution, low hanging this. So over the years, everybody gets accustomed that when they walk, they understand that there's a sign there that tells them to be careful, stop, think about things, maybe sure you have protective gear on, aspects, yada, 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 right? But when it comes to cybersecurity, there's no signs, right? There's no big signs, flashing on your computer or above your computer to do these things. So I think, and cyber is a big investment at every level, an important investment for every company. But when it comes to our client base, and our owners probably, would be really benefit from this. What are some of the simple, tools that you can suggest they think about from a practical perspective to help secure not only the business, but also them when they're, doing their jobs?
Good to be here again, Keith. Thanks for having me on. So when we're talking about these things, it comes to my mind that we're really focusing on those smaller to mid-sized businesses, maybe those businesses under 250 staff, privately held.
Right.
And I think there's some very simple type of things you can do that can mitigate a lot of the risk. So, it starts off with simple things such as, first of all, security is what you spoke to was safety in the workplace, really. And what you're really speaking to is where safety in the workplace is an issue, it's taken very seriously. And from the top down in that business, there is a culture of safety brought into the business, right? So there's a culture of you need to wear the protective gear. You need to act in a certain manner. You need to follow certain rules, processes. You need to use technologies in a certain way. So I think first and foremost, in a small business, it's very important that it's not the IT professional that is the only person banging on about security, because that can be the case, and it just becomes, a IT type of issue, and therefore everyone in the business feels it's a thing that the IT person should be involved in. So first of all, it should be incorporated into messaging to the company from leadership down. Mm-hmm. And that way people in the business are going to take it seriously. It doesn't matter how many signs you put up. If people in the business don't think it's important to their leaders in the business or to their own success within a business, they're not going to listen to it. So that's the first thing, I think. The second thing is there are very key systems that need specific types of security, and you should have them in place on all your systems. So in the world of security, we tend to talk about foundational security and enhanced security. Foundational is what every business should have just to operate technology properly and securely. Enhanced is things that you can, if you wish, depending on the industry, circumstances, client base, lots of different factors, you may want to incorporate. So something like multi-factor or two-factor authentication 2 or 3, 4 years ago, that would have been considered an enhanced security measure. That's a foundational security measure now. Every business should have multi-factor authentication on any tool that's accessible outside the organization. It's a must. It's not a, well, let's look at it. Right. That's a must. Having one multi-factor authentication tool instead of many different ones, depending on the system you're using, is very, very, very beneficial. So that's one thing. There is a discussion about whether having multi-factor authentication mitigates the need to have changing our strong password policies. My take still is you should keep the practice of having strong password policies. There's a very, very high percentage, again, it's in the 90s, or mid 80s, high 90s of poor password policy or acquisition of passwords, still causing a large amount of breaches. And I think also a tool like multi-factor authentication, while right now it's believed to be, a gate that really prevents a system from being hacked, that's not the case, really. Eventually, that will not be the case anyway, if it's considered the case now. I don't know if you've heard in the news recently this discussion of this Pegasus software, this Pegasus virus. Have you heard about that, Keith, at all? Or
no, I haven't
read
really,
any articles about it?
If you can just maybe talk a little bit about that, that'd be helpful.
So Pegasus is a piece of software that was used by nation states in certain instances, originally to protect people. It's now proliferated through certain states to certain individuals that are using it as a hacking tool. And what it does is it takes over your mobile device, your phone, completely without your knowledge, and it can see exactly what's happening on your phone. Now, it's not a highly proliferated type of tool right now, cyber tool, but it's a sign for the future of what's coming. And so therefore, that's going to start mitigating two-factor authentication as a true, gate to accessibility. Right. So therefore, strong passwords is very important. Email is by far and away how most breaches occur. So having a strong third-party security-focused tool wrapped around your email system. Most people use Office 365 for their email. While Microsoft obviously does put in place great security in their tools, it's a better benefit to use a third party to secure it. Most people would know or have heard of, or the most popular type of tools are Proofpoint and Mimecast. And lastly, I would say when you're talking about security to your IT team, well, first of all, have an IT professional team. If you're a firm of more than 15 or 20 people, you need to have a managed service provider or an internal team if that's what you want to do, that's advising you on what you should and shouldn't be doing. That's immensely important. And someone that is focused on security as part of their service delivery model, not as an afterthought. And lastly, I think when we talk about security, when we talk about securing our home, we don't just say, I've put locks on the door, I've put an alarm system on my house. We think about putting in multiple layers of security to say, I put locks on my door, I put an alarm in my house, I put a safe in my house, I have a gate, I have other intrusive measures for people getting into my house. That's called a layered security approach. In cyber, you need to have a layered security approach. Each type of system is going to have its own risk, and you need to have a layer of security in place to make sure that risk is being mitigated. So if you have a remote access system, you have to make sure you're thinking of the security required to mitigate that. And there's single sign-on type of scenarios. I don't want to go into too many different technologies, but there's lots of different technologies that you need to go above and beyond that. Accessibility, like we talked about last time, means different risk again. So you need to have different layers of security, mitigating different types of risks. So if your IT professional's answer is, yes, you have endpoint protection, like an email antivirus protection on your desktop, you're secure. You should be asking the question, well, that doesn't sound right, because I use this cloud system and my people access data when they're over in this location or when they're at home. How are we mitigating those risks? Finally, every single breach involves a human being, more or less. So training your people is immensely important, and repetitive training is immensely important. So in my firm, for instance, we do quarterly cybersecurity training, and every one of our clients just sign up their people to it as needed. We also have an automated user awareness testing program. So we're firing off using a security tool, mock phishing, mock credential phishing, mock information phishing, social engineering emails to try and entice people to make poor decisions. Then we're immediately giving them on-screen information about that decision. So if somebody received an email saying, click here to pick up or find out about your FedEx package, the minute they click that link, it's going to bring them to a screen and say, listen, you've just been phished. You need to be more aware of signs within this email that should have been red flags to you not to click. So that all happens automatically. And we also build a list of repeat, I don't want to say offenders, but people that make the poor choice over and over again. And then our clients bring them to a quarterly cybersecurity training with us. So repetition, because we're all being caught in more or less the same ways all the time. It's the medium of how the phishing or the social engineering email is wrapped up in there. The content is different, but basically the breach mechanism they're using is still the same. Click on the link, enter a password that you shouldn't, respond to a conversation or get yourself involved in a conversation that you're not really taking pure awareness of to understand that you don't belong in there. Receiving emails from people that you normally wouldn't receive emails from, or receiving emails from people that you do receive emails from, but asking you to do something that they don't normally ask you to do. I always say, take the approach that you would if you were walking down the street. If somebody walked up to you and said, hey, give me your wallet, I want to check your ID, you're going to go, wait a second, who are you? Right. Like, what are you doing that for? What's enticing you to come to me and ask that question? Or if somebody walked up to you in the street and said, hey, here's box seat tickets to the Garden for free to see the Knicks tonight. I mean, not many people want to go see the Knicks at the moment anyway, but you still would ask, wait a second, what's the catch? Why are you giving me something that A, I never asked for, and B, you don't even know that I want or not? You know, you're approaching something with caution. We don't do that with email when it comes to us, or with messaging. We tend to be a lot more open. We need to bring that type of safeguarding attitude to our desk and sitting when we're working and our interactions with our technology.
Yeah. So it sounds, I mean, in listening to you, I mean, it sounds it's critical, important. Like when we're meeting with business owners looking to sell their businesses, we're always kind of focused on a couple, 3 or 4 areas, right? The quality of the financial statements, who the auditors or accountants are, who heads up sales, does the owner, is he or she the person that owns the customer relationship, or they have a robust sales team that if they were to step aside, it just moves smoothly. Going on to your general manager, who runs the business, who runs the floor, make sure product is getting shipped, and of course the quality control group inspects and make sure that things go out the door that meets the standards that the customer's looking for, to make a seamless approach to running your call. Now, when I'm running a business, now I'm hearing from you, you need to add another, spoke on that management team, and that's your IT group, right? Whether it's internal, which for a small company with 15, 20 employees or 30 or 50 employees, it's unlikely that they will have a internal team, or if they have an internal team, it's like you said, it's one person who's banging on the desk all day long. Make sure you're doing this. What I'm hearing from you is that you need to have a plan, and you need to have a good, strong consulting firm or internal team that's managing this whole aspect of your information flow, because everything's everything, whether it's email or text, because everybody's getting phish text now, or spam calls, and those are probably coming from people getting your cell phone number because they hacked your credit card company or your mobile phone company or your healthcare provider, and they got when someone says they got 100 million hacks, they got your information, they probably got your phone numbers, right? So they're calling, and so you don't know, and then I'm seeing or have seen some links that are people actually putting links into a text message to click on, like, what the heck is this? But just to back it up a minute, is that when you're again, it's all about getting ready to sell your business, right? And so the stronger you are from an overall management perspective, and information technology is a critical component of that, it's only for the better. It only adds value. And I think that is not only critical, but essential. And it has to come from leadership. It's part of your culture moving forward, that you are not only protecting the business asset, but you're also protecting your people. Because when people get hacked, and maybe you can give us an example, they're taking it personally that they've harmed their company, right? Whether it's someone in operations or someone in accounting or someone in sales or the owner himself or herself. Maybe, they cause this disruption that is, whether it freezes your systems or freezes, whatever happens, it's not good. It's disruptive. And, maybe, you can maybe talk a little bit about that, because it's like, okay, we got hacked, right? But it's not, there's someone at the other end of that. Like you just said, it's usually an individual. And you being, on the ground floor, on the front lines of this, maybe you can get an example about, when you, that dreaded phone call that came in that we have an issue, and not only dealing that issue to get the company back online, but, talking to the person that it happened to and how he or she feels about it, because, it's something that they probably take personally and, cause a lot of anxiety and stress and concern.
Yeah, so there's two or three different things in that question. I think where you started off when you're talking about larger firms, the larger firms we work with have, larger IT teams. So therefore they have that expertise internally, and therefore they have the ability to advise the management, ownership, executive structure on what should be happening. As you come lower down in size and revenue, just like in every other aspect of your business, you generally can't hire the expert internally, or you may not be able to. So you have to find another way to do that, right? And that's how the term outsourcing came about. And essentially, that's what my firm is for the firms that are under, say, 200 people. They have certain expertise internally, but they don't have others, and they leverage us. Firms under 100 people, we're their entire IT team. From an advisory side, operational and support side, and security side. The second piece, I think, is that no matter how you get that advice inside in your business, the people that are leading your business in the key areas and are bringing the ideas to the table on how you're going to progress in that area of business, just like in cyber or in IT, you have to have someone that is storied, experienced, and has the people within the organization to enact what they say should be done. So expertise, outsourced it. If you're smaller to a good group, that good group should have that expertise and experience of delivering those services so that you can take advantage of it, right? I think that's basically, that's the same in any business. Lastly, you were just asking about what happens when a breach occurs, basically. What is the impact of that to the business? So there's, we've been called in, we're not really a breach response company. We're an IT firm within your business, putting in place the right guardrails to make sure you can operate productively and securely. there are very specific companies out there that when a breach occurs, they come in as a breach response unit, and we work with some of those people. So we've been pulled in after the fact to type of help. And I think that essentially there's a few things that always occur. First of all, there's immediately a lot of confusion. So there again, that's why you need a good IT team, because you need someone to take charge. You need someone to say, to delineate responsibilities, stop the bleeding immediately. So find the source of the breach, shut it down, and then start the process of informing everybody of what's going to happen, the plan of action. This is where we talked about in the last episode. If you're advancing yourself through having the right cybersecurity in place, you're going to have a breach response plan of some degree, so that you know who are the people to call. Maybe you have to put in place a reporting mechanism if you're in compliance. Certain of the ownership and engineer and executive team are going to have to be immediately informed. Say management. There might be notifications to clients, and the IT team has to be taking certain steps. It might have to get your cyber insurance company involved. There's lots of different things you have to do as a notification. Then you start identifying where the problem came from. So how did you get here? So you immediately found out the source, but you've shut it down so it's not proliferating through other systems. Then how did I get here? And then you're restoring systems. Right. And this is where, at the end of the day, no matter how good your cyber is, I think I've used this term a lot in talking to you, you're only mitigating risk. You're not preventing risk. So no matter what you've invested in your cyber, you need to also invest in your protection plan. And that's your business continuity and disaster recovery plan. So that if you do get breached and your security tools have not prevented this risk from infiltrating your environment, that you can pull that restore lever and start bringing systems online. So most firms, hopefully, have taken that. If you haven't taken that approach of building up the right protection plan, now you're into the point where you're dealing with the person that did the breach. Most likely, most small businesses now are hit by ransomware. That's the largest type of cyber breach that occurs. That's where your data and systems are encrypted. Right. And if you can't restore your systems properly, then you're going to have to pay a ransom. Those ransoms, the first ever case of ransomware I came across was back in 2014 when it first hit the market, first hit the business world. We'd never really seen anything like it. And I can remember that the ransom was about $2,000 in Bitcoin. And now you're talking $250,000 and up. Right. in ransomware. So you know your risk to protect, you could protect a small business, for $20,000 a year. So the investment is well worth the risk mitigation. So once you have your systems back up by paying, now you're thinking, what do I need to do better? But now you're dealing with what you've really been worrying about all along, and that's reputation. Right. How is this going to impact how I have to work with the institutions and the people and within the market I'm in? And that is where I see most stress occurring about the breach.
Yeah, because your reputation's on the line. You value your business.
Yeah, exactly.
Your customers, can they trust you? All those aspects is you don't think about it until it happens to you, right? So, I mean, I think that you bring incredible knowledge base, and between our last episode and today about having a plan, implementing a plan, monitoring a plan. And one thing I learned today from you is a breach response plan. It was just like anything else. If there's an injury incident on the factory floor, or there's a fire in a building, or there's a snow day, how do you notify employees not to come to work, right? Everybody has action plans, but how many business owners out there, smaller companies, have a breach response plan that when something happens, they can open up this document, probably a piece of paper, because they can't get into a computer, and say, okay, call X, Y, and Z, let's get this going. And the quicker we're back online, the more we can mitigate the damage and get back to business as normal. So, Darragh, this has been great. I mean, I can't thank you enough for coming back, and some of the tips you provided, some of the aspects of how to deal with these things, building a cyber plan into your culture of your business with your employees, are taking ownership of it. Like you said, you can't stop it, but you can mitigate it. So I really appreciate you coming today, and thank you very much. And maybe we'll circle back to each other in another 6 months and learn what's on the horizon in cybersecurity, what are new things coming on. And Darragh, thanks again for being with us today. Before we wrap things up, is there any last thoughts or things you'd like to share with us for our audience regarding all these topics on cybersecurity that we've handled and discussed over the last couple of episodes? Excuse me.
Yeah, I think just to touch on one of the last things we spoke about was the stress of reputational damage or market damage after a breach. I think you've used the term, it's not if you get breached, it's when you get breached. So your business being breached, unfortunately, is not something that's only happening to you. It's happening to a lot of people. And so having to report to your clients, to your partners, or to some type of compliance body is not really something to be stressed about. What you really want to be stressed about is having to report to one of those entities, knowing that you were not taking the right preventative measures. That's really where you don't want to be. So now is the time to take action before you're breached to make sure that you are mitigating the risks in the right way.
Well, that's a great point. Communication is key, and getting in front of it the best you can is important, not only for the individual, but for the health and well-being of their company. Thanks again for being with us.
Keith, it was a pleasure. Thanks for inviting me on. I love talking about these things and trying to bring some education to people, and giving a small little nugget that someone can take and then take some action on is great. Great.
Well, thanks again. And everybody, I appreciate you being with us today. My name is Keith D., President of Osage Advisors. You can learn more about our company by visiting our website at osageadvisors.com. If you have any questions, please feel free to shoot me an email at kdee@osageadvisors.com, or give me a call at 860-767-3273, extension 1001. Thanks again for being here today, and have a great day.